Welcome to Madukovic's Cogitations blog post of June 23, 2025. Title: Mene Tekel, Iran. It is now impossible to believe that Israel hadn't planned all the actions it's taken since October 7, 2023 till date. Before Hamas helped the former to push the date forward, and they have severally alluded to the same, only that we failed to see it, and we just merely looked at Gaza and Hamas, then Hezbollah, then the Houthis, and now shocked to see what's going on with Iran. Nothing exposes the insinuation better than the precision with which Israel has hit facilities and human assets of those they consider enemies since their onslaught began, leaving one to wonder whether there is still far more in the plan, or if even this is merely a work in progress. As it is, this is a battle against Iran and its proxies, but it doesn't mean Israel don't have enemies with Sunni leanings, as they may see the so-called moderates in Qatar, who were until recently under hammer from the Saudis and other members of the Arab League. Apparently, Israel is tired of fighting Iran's proxies and has decided to take the battle to the very doorsteps of their avowed enemy, who have over the years maintained with singular focus their aim to wipe Israel out of the map. With this in mind, you will not anymore begin to think that Israel started this with Iran, because you will know that Iran instigated this with the support it gave irritants over the years to ensure that Israel hardly drank water and peaceably dropped the cup. When people rush to point to Israel disrupting negotiations Iran was having with the US about its nuclear intentions, they simply forget that Israel were also in talks to mend fences with the Saudis when Iran threw their spanner in the works with the October 7 Hamas action on Israel and stalled that process till date. The German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, gave voice to people's thoughts when he alluded to Israel doing everybody's dirty work, even though not many would want to publicly admit it. Iran is a thorn in the flesh of the nations in that region and the world at large, especially when it comes to commercial shipping lane routes. Like Israel, Iran is not an Arab nation, and the arm of Islam it adopted and promotes is the one at variance with the dominant power in the region, with whom there is no love lost as well. It is why it is no surprise that beyond some face-saving, feeble press statements in condemnation of the Israeli action, nothing else has and will come out of even the main body, the Arab League, or even the Union of Countries with Large Muslim Populations, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC. Interestingly, Iran and Israel didn't start off as sworn enemies they've become today, and indeed, Iran was one of the few nations that received Israel with an open arm in the early days of its nationhood, even while Israel was in war mood with her Arab neighbors. Even in ancient history, the fate of Israel and Persia have often been locked at one time or the other, especially with Iranian royalty, from Esther, Mordecai's niece, married to Persia's king Artaxerxes, to where only but recently a granddaughter of the deposed late Shah Reza Pahlavi wed the son of a Jewish billionaire in the United States. But once the king was deposed and replaced by the Ayatollah Khomeini in 1979 and Iran became a theocracy, it ran a democracy which lends itself to elections in which a president, who speaks the mind of the religious leaders, is elected routinely. Even today, Iran and Israel remain the only countries in the Middle East where elections are held, even though democratic principles find application to be more practical than symbolic in the latter than in the former. And so it is that after Israel escalated its activities against the proxies of Iran, and sometimes making several incursions within Iran itself to target some proxies, as well as Iranian officials engaged in its nuclear program, it decided finally to hit military facilities, nuclear facilities, as well as decapitate the human resource at the head of these institutions with outstanding precision, leaving Iran to retaliate by firing at random into Israel without distinguishing between military and civilian assets. Interestingly, just days after this shock Israeli attack started on Friday, June 13, 2025, Iran had widely celebrated the successful infiltration of the Israeli nuclear weapons program, and it was all over Al Jazeera, like some victory had been won. I thought that was why Israel decided to hit Iran. Maybe exterminate the spy or the files at the disposal of Iranian intelligence. But apparently, the intention, as we can now see, is wider. Though the Americans seems to be taken unawares, they do not seem to disagree with what Israel is doing, especially with hardware they supplied Israel, and going as far as cutting negotiations that was scheduled to continue between the Americans and Iranians just 2 days later. Indeed, just a week after the Israeli action, America hit 3 secretive Iranian nuclear sites that had been taken on the ground because of Israel's attacks over the years, with their bunker-busting bombs hoisted aboard the B-2 stealth bombers. This, after President Donald Trump had deceived the world by letting it out that it needs 2 weeks to decide if it assists Israel with the facility only that superpower had, to target such a facility deep under the mountains in Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. The movement of the B-2 bombers were described in the Western media as going to the Pacific island of Guam to give the president options should he decide to hit Iran. The bombings happened on a day that saw parts of Iran reeling from a 5.0 magnitude earthquake earlier that day, leaving many wondering whether the seismic activity was due in part to nuclear material leak or activity from damage inflicted during some of the Israeli Air Force raids. It is expected that Iran will retaliate to save face, but the Americans had already warned that Iran's next action will determine the level of escalation or even peace that will follow. When Trump had Iran Soleimani killed in his first term, Iran and its proxies in Iraq hit the American bases there, while the other attempt had the former downing one of its commercial planes mistakenly. It is left to be seen what Iran plans to do next, though it might be buoyed by Trump's decision to not pursue regime change in Iran, which Israel has since declared interest in. Interestingly, in the past few days, we've seen Trump flip-flop on the issue of Iran, as with many other policies of his, for which the Tekel, Trump always checking out acronym, has since become a buzzword, and we may find him soon sitting on the same fence with Bibi Netanyahu. I had predicted as Trump returns that one of the things we are most likely to see with the Trump second term is a blank check that will be handed Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And even this is now beginning to look like an understatement, as now I can't tell either of which is waging the other, between the dog and its tail. Like one commentator on BBC said, even if the Iranian supreme leader survives this, due mainly because of the national pride-induced unity that's presently pervading the air of Iran now, at the end of this war, when peace is finally obtained, it may likely be the restlessness that follows that will lead to the end of the regime, and who knows what the replacement will represent. For now, the skirmishes continue, with both sides counting the losses in damages due to the bombardments, though it is expected that as Israel discovers more Iranian rocket launch sites, Iran's capabilities will be greatly diminished in that aspect. Except negotiations towards a truce is speedily brought about, if there is any victory in this for Iran, it is the demystification of Israel's Iron Dome technology. Will this lead to a third world war? Nah, nothing like that are going to happen. I believe we've seen the worst of this war already, and it was a war that needed to be fought, because Iran and Israel has been at it for more than a long time already, with Iran tormenting Israel with its proxies for far too long, and needed to be approved to put its money where its mouth is for once. Sadly, now that it has eventually happened, Russia already has its hands full, and China is also bogged down with its economic war of survival with the United States, leaving only Israel with its allies intact to wage war against an isolated Iran. So far, Israel is acing this, but in a long drawn-out war, things can quickly change, and Armageddon beckon. Govich. For more on this, please subscribe, like, share. Thank you.